Hello and welcome back again to That Tracks F1 podcast. For this, our preview of the Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai this weekend. Just a quick request, guys, if you would be good enough to like and subscribe, it really would help me out massively. And if you could find us and follow us on social media too, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram as That Tracks F1 podcast. If you could give us a follow, that would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Well, this is going to be the first sprint weekend on the calendar for our new regulations. So there's even more to look forward to and even more chances to see how everyone stacks up. I think it's safe to say it'll be a little different to last year's Chinese Grand Prix and the sprint. I remember last year's sprint being quite interesting. I quite enjoyed it. I know that sprints are something that kind of divide the fan base a little bit, don't they? Some people like them, some people don't. Some people are in the middle, but usually the one end of the spectrum or the other. They either like them or they don't. I quite like them. I see the point that a lot of people raise that they dilute down the actual race on race day. You kind of get in a mini race, you kind of get an idea of what's going to happen. And yeah, that can be true. But F1 is unpredictable, so it's definitely not always the case. And I do think for the fans that are actually at the Grand Prix, it represents better value. Grand Prix tickets are extortionately expensive. You know, it's a really expensive thing to go and do. And for my money, if I'm going to part with that level of cash, give me an extra competitive session, please. Free practice is all well and good, but I'd much rather have the sprint. You know, they score points in the sprint. They're actually competing against each other. So from that point of view and perspective, I quite like the sprint. So yeah, last year's sprint, a really exciting watch. Great to see Hamilton on pole. Good to see too that he actually held on for the win. Some really good scraps in that sprint last year. Really enjoyed the scrap between Verstappen and Piastri for second place, and Piastri eventually took it. Max's tyre wear was just too much. But yeah, really enjoyable sprint. So in the main race, George Russell took pole, but was unfortunately just completely eaten for breakfast off the line by both Piastri and Lando, who qualified in second and third. And Russell ended up down in third, really, very quickly on the first lap. And this was the race, if you remember, where Ollie debuted his ciao every time he passed someone, which was very endearing. And I really think he should bring that back. We liked that. So yeah, it was quite a good race. I remember there being quite a lot of overtakes and the last few laps being a really good battle between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. But in the end, it was Oscar on the top step of the podium, Lando in second, and Russell in third. Unfortunately for both the Ferraris, it was all for nothing in the end, as they both got disqualified after the race, but for different reasons. Let's hope they have better luck this year. Talking of this year, the Chinese Grand Prix is going to be quite distinctly different to the Australian Grand Prix. A number of the drivers and team bosses said last weekend that the Australian Grand Prix was not the ideal starting point for these new regulations. It really did throw everybody in at the deep end with how to best utilise the battery, and I think Shanghai should be more straightforward. You've got two straights. One of them's a big long straight, one of the longest on the F1 calendar, but you've also got some really big braking zones for recharging that battery. You've got 10, 14, the hairpin. You've got 10, 6 and 11, all big braking zones that should make charging that battery easier. So hopefully this will ease everybody into these new regulations and learning how this battery, the best way to utilise the battery power. I think it'll be a lot easier at Shanghai than it was in Australia. And it's predicted at the moment to be a dry race. I believe that there's rain predicted for the beginning of next week in Shanghai. Things can change. It could even be that there's an outside chance of a wet race. It'll certainly be colder there than it was in Australia. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of difference that makes. But I think overall, it'll be a little bit easier ride for most, as they're all getting used to these new regulations and these new cars. So, that being said, let's move on to predictions. And I've actually had quite a hard time with predictions, probably because I'm really good at getting them wrong. I think I said last week that, once we've done Australia, it'll be easy to do predictions because we'll have a ballpark idea of where everybody's kind of checking out. We'll know who's got the fastest car, who's where. And sure enough, Mercedes, it appears, has got the fastest car. And I kind of knew and suspected that Ferrari were going to be pretty good. But I was quite surprised to see how good. I was quite surprised to see that the Mercedes didn't fire off into the distance and leave everybody in the dust. So really, it's now a lot easier than it was last week, because you've also got the fact that, as I said in the Australian Grand Prix review, that Verstappen didn't qualify where we would expect him to. So we really don't know where he would have ended up in the race. Piastri obviously was out of the race, so we don't know where he would have ended up in the race. So there's still a lot of guesswork, really. Obviously, the Mercedes are set to go well. I think that goes without saying. Everybody's expecting the Mercedes to go well. But I really don't think you can discount Ferrari at all this weekend. Last year's Chinese Grand Prix, Hamilton really dominated in the sprint. Charles Leclerc and Hamilton both did extremely well in the race. So I think that Mercedes can't be resting on the laurels at all. They might have a bit of a rocket ship, but I really think that Ferrari's going to bring the challenge this weekend in the biggest possible way. So that kind of takes care in my mind of who's kind of going to be at the top, who's, maybe who's going to take pole, who's going to come out of the sprint and the race in the first sort of top 4 to 5 places. But then you've got, it really gets interesting after that, because yes, you've got the McLarens, yes, you've got the Red Bull, but the Racing Bulls did really, really well in Australia. Gasly wasn't far behind in the Alpine. They've got the Mercedes engine. They're going to be improving all the time. It's difficult to know how well Norris or Piastri will do. So it's not easy at all to predict this. So I'm just going to go for what I think, and I'll probably keep swapping them around a little bit in my own mind, because I have done when I've thought about it. When it comes to the sprint, I suspect there's a good chance that I think it'll be Antonelli that takes pole. He's taken pole in a sprint before. It's not beyond the realms of his ability, even last year when the Mercedes wasn't really as good as the McLaren. So I do think there is a good chance that Antonelli can take pole. I say that, I am a little bit concerned at how scrappy some of his weekend really was. That big crash in free practice 3. I mean, he did extremely well to go out there and get on the front row in qualifying after that happened. I just think that maybe this weekend, it was a little bit like first day back at school, and I think Antonelli will probably have a little bit of a smoother weekend. We'll probably pop it on pole in the sprint. So that's my prediction for sprint pole, Kimi Antonelli. When it comes to the sprint result, my top 5, I'm going to do in reverse order. And 5 and 4, I swapped them round, I've swapped them back, I've swapped them round, I've swapped them back. And even now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, I've still left a main player out there, and I'm really unsure whether I should have put them in. And I'm working on the theory that something could go a little bit awry again. So at the moment, in 5th, I have got Norris. I think, again, he will put in as good a showing as he can do. McLaren's a little bit off the pace, but he's not world champion for nothing. So I think there's every chance that he could finish 5th in the sprint. In 4th, I've put Oscar. And the reason I have swapped these around with Oscar in 5th and Lando in 4th, but I've put them back as Lando 5th and Oscar 4th, because I think Oscar's really going to come back with as much of a vengeance as he can this weekend. I think he knows that not only was that really, really difficult thing for him to have happen, but it's also going to put a big dent in any chance he would get of pushing for the championship, because we don't know how this year's going to play out. We don't know how well the car's going to develop. It could be one of those years where halfway through the season, or even a little less than halfway through the season, suddenly McLaren are up there at the top again. So Oscar is really, really going to want to get as many points on the table as he can, just in case. So I think he will be really, really pushing this weekend and could take 4th. So yeah, Norris in 5th, Piastri in 4th. And in 3rd, I've got Charles Leclerc. I'm fully expecting Charles to bring it again this weekend like he did last weekend, and I think his lightning start will certainly stand him in good stead in the sprint. We know with Charles that he's an excellent driver. I still say, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, I still say that for me, Charles sometimes still makes some baffling mistakes, but they're becoming less and less frequent. So yeah, I've got Charles in 3rd for the sprint. I think there's every chance he could probably even do a little bit better than that, but I've got to put him somewhere. And in 2nd for the sprint, I have put Kimi Antonelli. I do think, as I said, he'll take pole, but I do think that he really will be under pressure, because if the Ferraris are there or thereabouts, I think they're just going to have him off the line. I really do. Because we saw the last time that he got pole in a sprint that he'd lost the lead well and truly. I think I might be wrong, but I think he was even down to about 3rd by the 1st or 2nd corner, because he was just eaten alive off the line. And I think if it's the Ferraris have qualified anywhere near him in the sprint, I think that's going to happen again. And I think he's going to struggle to get the lead back. So yeah, I've got Kimi in second. And I do think sprint winner could very, very well be Lewis Hamilton. He took the pole and he won the sprint here last year. It's somewhere he likes, it's somewhere he goes well. He's going to have that extra boost of confidence that knowing that he did it last year and he did it in an inferior Ferrari, certainly not as good or as quick a Ferrari as he's got this year. So I think Boyd, with his recent new mindset and the success of last weekend and the fact that he did win the sprint here last year, I think he's going to be pretty unstoppable. But I do look at this list and realise that I've left out Russell, I've left out Verstappen, and it's really, really difficult to pick a top 5 when you've got 8, and I've left out Isaac. Sorry. But it's really, really difficult to pick a top 5 when those 8 drivers could really, any one of them can be in that top 5. So I kind of have to make a cut. But realistically, Russell could be in there, Verstappen could be in there, Hadjar could be in there. But that's what I went with. Norris in 5th, Piastri in 4th, Leclerc in 3rd, Antonelli 2nd, and Hamilton taking the win. So I guess we'll see. Now, when it comes to the main race, I had the same problem again of how do I pick a top 5 when there are 8 drivers at least that could easily do it. I've picked my 5 and, well, I guess we'll see. In 5th place, I've put Lewis, which you may think is a little bit odd after I've predicted him for the win in the sprint. I'm just a little concerned over a full race distance how well Lewis will go. When I say how well Lewis will go, I think Lewis will do his absolute best and throw everything at it, especially if he does get the win in the sprint. But I just don't trust the Ferrari strategy. I am just not convinced after last weekend, although again, opinions very polarised, very divided over that. There are a lot of people who think it would have made no difference. And there are a lot of people who are screaming at the TV like, why are you not bringing one of them in? I do slightly fall in that latter camp. I can see the argument that overall it probably would have made no difference, but you just never know. And to me, given that chance, particularly if your driver is saying, why did you not pick one of us? I think it wouldn't have hurt to have split the strategy. And I have a slight lack of confidence. Well, it's not even slight really, but I have a lack of confidence in Ferrari's strategy calls. So that is why I've popped Hamilton down in 5th, because I think, again, he could fall victim to another semi-blunder. Now, in 4th, I've had the Norris-Piastri dilemma again of like, which one do I put there? I'm still sat here now going, Norris-Piastri. I think simply because of what I stated in the sprint, that Oscar is going to come to China all guns blazing, trying to make up for lost ground. I think it could be Piastri. I think he's going to be pushing really, really hard this weekend. He is admittedly at a bit of a disadvantage in that he's not really experienced this car and how to best utilise the battery in a race, because he didn't get to race in Australia. So he is a little bit on the back foot there when it comes to how to best manage the battery, how best to drive this car with the new regulations. But China will at least break him in gently, as it were, because as we've said, there's more chance to charge the battery. There's not 4 straights that you're kind of having to eke the energy out over. So I think on balance, I think it could be Piastri in 4th. Now, in 3rd, there's one of the ones I left out with my sprint. I think 3rd place will go to Max Verstappen, and I think it's partly because while last weekend was not a disaster, Max certainly did nothing wrong. It was not his fault what happened in qualifying, and he certainly did a Max Verstappen special, didn't he, on race day, from 20th all the way up to, was it 6th he finished, I believe? So we know he's capable of it. We know that he got that Red Bull right up there as far as he could, up in with the main players, so to speak. Couldn't get past Norris, and I think that's largely because the McLaren and the Red Bull are fairly close in pace. But I do think that he's going to come out all guns blazing, a little bit like Oscar's going to come out all guns blazing this weekend. He's got ground to make up. Admittedly, not as much ground as Oscar, but he has got ground to make up, and he is going to make it up. And I know that for all of his comments about he doesn't enjoy these cars and it's not racing, at the end of the day, it's Max. And if there's a competition to be had, if there's a win to be had, if there's a podium to be had, you just know he's going to throw absolutely everything at it. And I really, really think he will this weekend. And I think he will want to put that stamp on the race to say, right, I got a podium. Probably even throw the gauntlet down a little bit to Ferrari and Mercedes as a bit of a reminder that, yes, while you two are slugging it out, you two teams are slugging it out between the four of you, you can't discount Max. He's going to be snapping at your heels come what may. So I think it'll be very important in Max's mind to get on that podium this weekend. And he's Max, so he'll probably do it, to be fair. So now for second place. In second, I have gone for Charles Leclerc. I have a good feeling. I've got some positive vibes about Charles this weekend. I think he did amazingly well last weekend. I think the car looks absolutely great. And I think that he will definitely be taking that fight to the top again. I think we'll see that the track at Shanghai suits the Ferraris anyway. And I think that Charles will really be looking to put his stamp on this race. Another lightning start, no matter really where he qualifies, another one of those Ferrari lightning starts will certainly put him in good stead. It really is a case of, as long as one of the Mercedes doesn't pull too far away this time, as long as he can keep pace with it, then I really think that even if he can't catch the Mercedes, I think that he will easily keep other drivers behind him. So that's why I think he'll end up in second and on that podium. So as you probably gathered, I've kind of predicted a Mercedes for the win, which is not a stretch, is it? To think that a Mercedes will be on the podium. And I've plumped for Russell because I just think Russell's on an absolute roll at the moment. He's absolutely buoyed up. He's confident. He loves the car. The car's ridiculously fast. They're definitely top of their game at the moment, aren't they? Everybody else is really having to play catch up. I think Mercedes has had a little bit of a shock with just quite how close Ferrari have been, but I don't think they're sweating it quite yet. I think that Russell's going to come into this weekend with that confidence of knowing that realistically they've got the best car on the grid. They've got the fastest car on the grid. So I know Russell has never had back-to-back wins. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Russell has ever had a win followed by a podium. So it could be breaking that curse this weekend. So yeah, as boring as it is at this stage, but I've gone with it because I think I've got to get something right eventually. Yeah, I don't know what it is with me. I always do try and I never kind of go for the favourite in anything. I always tend to go for the next one down, or even sometimes the underdog, which is good fun, but it doesn't score you many points in the old family competition. But yeah, so this time I'm playing it a little bit safe and I'm going to say Russell for the win. So yeah, that's probably Kirsten. But yeah, so I think the order will be Hamilton in fifth, Piastri in fourth, Verstappen in third, Leclerc second, and George Russell again for the win. But I guess we'll see. Again, it's still so hard to call. And the predictions games are not going to get any easier until a lot more of the season's unfolded. So again, giving it lots of thought, we've got our hit the mark and pull over and park section. And I've kind of touched on it. I mean, this week I've gone for drivers more than teams. Obviously, I had the low-hanging fruit last week of, I don't think Aston Martin will be very good. Shock. So this week for my hit the mark, I have gone for Max Verstappen. And I have already touched on the reasons why. I think he's going to come out all guns blazing. I think he knows he wants to get some really good solid points on the board. He wants to put his stamp on this championship. And I think it was a hard-learned lesson for Max last year to lose his fifth championship to 2 points. I think he's very, very aware that you take nothing for granted. Not that Max ever does rest on his laurels or not give it 100%. Absolutely he does not. But I think he'll be very, very aware that but for 2 points, he would have had that championship last year. So every single point and every single position counts. And even in these stages at the beginning of the season where he doesn't quite have the car, he is going to squeeze absolutely everything he can out of it. And he is going to get every single point he possibly can. And I think he's going to have a belter of a weekend. I think that he's going to be he's going to take the annoyance and the anger he felt at what happened in qualifying last weekend. I think he's going to take that and he's going to use it as fuel, and he's going to come back this weekend and woe betide anybody that gets in his way, because he's really going to grasp this weekend with both hands and absolutely do everything he can. Now, my pullover and park flies a little bit in the face of some of the predictions I've made, but, I've kind of got to cover all my bases here. I've got to get something right. My pullover and park might not be a very popular one, but I've picked Antonelli because I think there's a bit of a chance that he kind of rode his luck last weekend, because he did make mistakes. He did have a rough weekend right up until the race. He was extremely lucky to get out in qualifying. It was only because of the red flag that Max brought out that really that car was ready for him to get out in qualifying. Otherwise, he'd have been nowhere near. And I think he's used up quite a lot of his luck last weekend. And I've just got a feeling that that little bit of inexperience is still showing. That little bit of first day back at school-ism is still showing. The new car, the new regulation, yes, it's fast. But it doesn't matter how fast you are if you're putting it in the wall. And I've just got a little bit of a feeling that it might all just catch up a little bit with Kimi this weekend, and he's not quite going to get the results that he hoped for. But we'll see. I don't ever mind being wrong about the pullover and park, because I always feel kind of mean singling a team or a driver out and saying, I don't think you're going to do very well this weekend. So out of all the predictions I can get wrong, I don't mind getting pullover and park wrong, because I don't really want to see anybody have a rubbish weekend. I mean, I've not really meant there's lots of other drivers that I would like to mention. I am so excited to see what Lindblad will do this weekend, because last weekend was obviously amazing and fantastic. And I was really impressed with his interview with Jenson Button after the race, where he talked about how Formula One's always been his dream, and that so many people have talked to him about the pressure of it, but he just reminds himself, as he said, I'm here for me. And I just thought, that's a champion's attitude. And at this young age, he's not coming. There's a real difference, isn't there, between arrogance and cockiness and being confident. And Arvid is confident. I think he presents himself very, very well. I think he's very intelligent, and I think he seems a lot older than his years. So I'm really, really hoping that he goes super well this weekend as well, because what I don't want is for people to say, oh, well, I guess Australia was a bit of a flash in the pan, because the lad's got incredible talent. So fingers crossed for another great weekend for Lindblad. Be lovely also to see the Williams and the Alpines getting a little bit further up there, having a little bit better luck this weekend. I mean, Gasly didn't do too badly. He managed to bag that last point on the table. But by God, he had to work for it. I just feel a little bit sorry for Franco. The Colapinto and go penalty, as the graphic said, but the stop and go penalty, it was not actually his fault. It was something to do with the crew member. So that really wasn't his fault. Obviously, he's had loads and loads of praise for his avoidance of Lawson off the line, cat-like reactions. And he was also the top speed driver of the weekend. He was the one who went the fastest. And to come our way again with nothing to show for it is a real, real shame. So I'm rooting for Franco this weekend. Let's get that point, please. Or more than 1 point if we can. Really want to see Isaac go well again this weekend as well, because he was doing pretty good. And it was just really unfortunate that that power unit let go. So I'm thinking we're going to see Isaac come back from that and bounce back this weekend, hopefully get to finish a full race, and hopefully blow my predictions out of the water by inserting himself firmly in that top 5, which would be really good for him, because, again, he'll be feeling that pressure as well. I don't think Isaac really thought that he was coming out and having a massive championship chance, but you still want to be putting the points on the table. You still want to be up there challenging. So, yeah, it'd be really, really good to see that. So what about you guys? Who do you think? Who do you think is going to take pole? Who do you think is going to do well in the sprint? It's difficult to predict at the minute, isn't it? And to be honest, I don't really see it getting an awful lot easier as the season unfolds. I think it's going to keep us on our toes a bit. And I'm pleased and hopeful that Mercedes are not just going to romp away with it, that we are going to see some good battles, that we are going to see overtaking. So yeah, I'm super excited for this weekend. It's another early one, isn't it? It's another one for setting the old alarm quite early. But I am actually going to have quite a nice relaxing day on Sunday, because here in the UK it's Mother's Day. So yes, I shall be expecting to be pampered and spoiled all day, and not have to lift a finger. I'll be making the most of it. So that's it for this preview of the Chinese Grand Prix. Please don't forget to give us a like and a follow, and follow us on social media at That Tracks F1 Podcast. I'd really appreciate it. Looking forward to this weekend, looking forward to some great racing, and I'll see you here on Tuesday for a review of everything that happened at the Chinese Grand Prix. Take care, enjoy your weekend, and don't forget the cheesy tagline, That Tracks F1 Podcast. Track the action, join the fun.